Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Today I am going to provide you a novel called War of Fire and Fortune. Hope you will like it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started.
Prologue * before the war. It was the day before the coronation. I hadn't been present for a crowning in a few centuries, so I figured it would be a sight worth seeing. Every ruler of Osperia kept the throne for a century before they handed down their legacy to their heir. If they didn't have one, it went to the closest blood relative. Ember's current emperor, Devdin Corvus, had two sons, Valos, the eldest, and Tigan. Although Devdin had been a great leader during his reign, ever since he'd announced this morning that he was giving the crown to his youngest son, the magic that buzzed under my skin wouldn't leave me alone. It begged to be released, to show me a vision of what would come of his decision. I didn't want it. I could tell by the feel of it, it wasn't anything good. And no one would listen to a crazy old hoot of a woman like me when it came to royalty. The only ones who took my and my twin sister's foretellings seriously were those of our village on the outskirts of the Imperial District. When I'd been a mere child, I hadn't understood what the visions were, but over time our parents had realized that the things we said would come to be. Sometimes I would see something years before it happened, and other times only minutes before. Marlena's visions were never as in-depth or as precise as mine, but we shared similar abilities. Our parents had assumed it was because we were twins. As I'd gotten older, I've learned from the Kappa that only one of us had been meant to hold the power of a soothsayer. The gods normally only blessed one within our world at a time, similarly to other ancient creatures we told stories about around the fire. If something happened to us, to our soul, our abilities would be reborn into someone else. I believed that the gods had almost finished bestowing our gifts when our soul split in our mother's womb, which was why my sight was stronger. "What is it?" Marlena asked, pulling me from my stirring thoughts. "Nothing," I dismissed, and she glared daggers at me. "Oh, please, Willow. You're my sister. I know that look. What did you see? Or are you focusing so hard because you're trying not to see something?" "The latter," I huffed. "Ooh." She rolled her eyes at me. "I don't understand why you fight it so hard, dear sister. It's a gift, so use it." "I know I do." She gave me a wink. "Oh, do you remember that gown I thought was absolutely perfect for the coronation tomorrow? The emerald one with the gold threads and flowy chiffon." She smiled smugly as her eyes gleamed, as if she could already see herself twirling in it like a child. "Yes, what about it?" "It will most definitely be the dress I wear tomorrow," she assured me. "And how do you plan to do that exactly?" I asked. "Well, we don't have that kind of coin, but I'm sure something will happen." She glanced ahead to the trail of markets on the cobblestone. "Watch," she whispered to me before she sauntered a short way down the path. Marlena grabbed two of Ember's Firefly soldiers from their posts. "Hello, boys. Could you come with me, please? There's been a robbery." Her voice was calm, and the soldiers looked confused, but they followed her. Nonetheless, shouts rose from one building down, and three rugged-looking Phi boys scrambled out of the building. Each had a makeshift bindle thrown over their backs. Thieves, * before they made it 3 steps. The Firefly Marlene had led over snatched them up. They cuffed them for their crimes, returned the merchant's merchandise, and then thanked my sister for her insight. Doubtful they knew just how far our insight ran. The merchant shook her hand and gave her 4 silver coins. "Thank you so much, milady. With what they were trying to steal, I would have been out so much more than this, so please take it as a token of my gratitude." "My pleasure, dear. Have a good day," Marlena crooned before taking the coins and walking back over to me with a twisted grin painted on her features. "Bet you didn't see that one coming, did you, sister?" Satisfaction dripped from her tone. "Had no idea," I lied. I didn't tell her I'd seen the vision of what had just played out in front of me weeks ago. I have forgotten about it because of the clawing feeling of my magic doing everything it could to break down the barrier I'd held in my mind after the Emperor's announcement this morning. I really didn't want to know what it begged to show me. At least not yet. I just wanted to enjoy my day first, as I knew it would change everything. After years of living with it, I could tell when a premonition was going to be positive or negative. It was like the vision came with an aura. Living while always knowing what was coming wasn't a life at all. Although plenty of others over the years had told me and my sister how they wished they would have been blessed with the same abilities. This wasn't a gift like my waterbending, but a curse dot in the vision I'd seen with the boy thieves. It hadn't involved Marlena, but being a soothsayer and seeing what was going to happen before it did, regardless of how much I hated it, had its perks. We couldn't change the things we saw, but we could alter them. Use our magic to intervene in ways to turn things in our favor, like Marlena had just done. But there was always a risk. Our interference could change more than a single moment if we weren't careful. Come on, dear sister. Now we have enough to buy us both a nice dress, Marlena boasted, looping her arm with mine as she turned us around and headed back toward the shop with the dress she so desperately craved. Asterisk. As I watched her put the dress on and twirl in front of the trifold mirror with a beaming smile on her face, I couldn't stop my own from tugging on my lips. She looked beautiful. We shared the same dark skin, salt and pepper hair, and brown eyes. Over the years, I'd stopped caring about my hair graying and my wrinkles forming. I viewed it as if I had earned them from all my life experience. Regardless of being an immortal fae, the centuries would show on you. It just took time. Eventually, it slowed and then stopped when I was around 400 or so. My magic pulsed and tugged at me again. It seemed to be getting angrier by the minute. My head was beginning to pound from the amount of restraint I was using to keep it from showing anything to me. Marlena chatting with the seamstress faded into the background as I stood and walked toward the door. Asterisk. Are you all right? Marlena called to me. Double quotes. Yes, I'm fine. Just stepping out to get some air. Take your time, I said as I walked out the door, the wood creaking close behind me. I needed to get somewhere a little more secluded. I knew I couldn't hold off this vision for much longer. It was physically painful at this point. None had ever been so insistent before. I paced past the seamstress's small shop and moved through the wooded area, away from the main street through the markets. And then I saw Silver. A young girl skipped cheerily down the path, her silver hair feathered around her face from the loose strands that had fallen out of her braid. Her parents were not far behind. My magic thrummed, and the wall of resistance I had held all day crumbled in my mind. I gasped from the force of power coursing through me. I wanted to stay away from the child, but I couldn't. My body moved of its own accord, like a tether of fate tugging me toward her. Emmeline, Emmeline, Emmeline. I stumbled. My eyes had already gone milky white, the color of them lost to the magic coursing through my mind. And then darkness clouded my vision, the light within the dark, war and retribution. Love, loss, betrayals, centuries worth of it. All of the emotions shredded through my very being. Asterisk. When I woke, a man, who I knew to be Orion from my visions, held a dagger pointed in my direction and had my hands bound. No need for this, child, I said, my voice still weak from the amount of power I had burned through. Who are you, and how do you know my daughter's name? Orion questioned, moving the dagger closer to my throat. Orion, put it away, I ordered, and his eyes rounded in surprise. Who are you? He repeated, glancing back at his wife, Ivy, who was sitting up against the tree with their young daughter on her lap. My name is Willow. I'm a soothsayer and a waterbender. I know who you are too. I know you're an ember for the coronation tomorrow. You traveled from Azora. Your mate and wife's name is Ivy. All three of you are waterbenders. Your best friend's name is Holland. He's a sky elf. He also has a wife, Kali, who is also his mate, and a son named Ace. Do you believe me yet? Or would you like me to keep going? I asked, and he slowly lowered his dagger with parted lips and surprised eyes. I lifted my wrists, revealing the ropes still tied there, and he cut me free. What do you want with us? I thought you were trying to kidnap my daughter, he admitted, and I shook my head. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes when I have powerful visions, I have little control over what my body is doing. I wanted to protect her. From what? He asked, his voice grave. I think we should go somewhere more private. There's a lot to discuss, I suggested, and he stood up from his haunches and offered me a hand. I took it and stood. Come on, my home isn't too far. We can talk there, I said, leading the way. We made the journey quickly, rushing through the woods, the evening light casting an orange glow through the trees. This route was faster than staying on the trails. We made it to my rickety front door, and I held the screen door open for them to come in. Luckily, Marlena still hadn't come home. I assumed she'd gone out with Lily, the seamstress. They had always been good friends. Since tomorrow was Coronation Day, the Imperial District would be full of festivities tonight. All the fae and creatures who had traveled near and far to celebrate something beautiful would be completely unaware of what actually awaited them. Nothing would be the same now. What is going on? Orion asked firmly, his blue eyes intently on me. This time of our world, the creatures and benders of Vesperia living in harmony with each other is over. Tomorrow, Valos is going to kill his father and his brother and take the crown for himself. And what comes after that? I paused, tears lining my eyes at the amount of destruction and death that awaited all of us in the future. No. We can stop it. We can go to the Emperor tonight and tell him. The only outcome from that is us dying. I've already seen it. Valos has prepared for this. He is going to go through with it. The only thing we can do is protect Emmeline. What did you see happen to my daughter? Why does she need protection? Emmeline is the peace bringer. I whispered more so to him, but I saw Ivy's eyes widen in shock. She will be the key to ending the war that's coming. No. His voice was firm. No, my little girl will not be fighting any wars. That's not for you to decide. The gods have already made their decision. No. His voice bounced off the worn wooden walls of my home. Orion, Ivy whispered, and he glanced over to them. Ivy was running her fingers through their daughter's hair, keeping her content. His eyes softened after being filled with anger. He was scared, as he should be. Valos was going to destroy everyone's peace. What did you see? Orion asked. I don't know when they will come for her, but in my vision, she looked to be a teen when Ember's ships came to Azora. But maybe we could change it. Pause it, or at least try. I can cast a spell of protection over her. No other soothsayer will be able to see what or where she is. But know that by doing this, it could alter what happens in the future. If Valos were to use a soothsayer or a witch to try and find her, it would distort what they would see. I thought there was only one of you in the world at a time. How does a soothsayer know how to cast spells? What aren't you telling me? He questioned. My mother was a witch, and my father was a water-bending fae from Asura, just like you. I am the soothsayer, but I know my way around a few spells. And yes, under normal circumstances, there would be only one, but I'm a twin and my sister possesses similar abilities. I don't have time to give you a history lesson, child. All you need to know is that I've been around a long time and I know what I'm doing. Okay, he released a long, heavy breath. What do we need to do? I'll do anything to keep her safe. Orion sounded determined. I placed a gentle hand over his on the table. Don't worry, child. I have all the ingredients to cast protection over her. After that, I suggest you leave Ember, go home, keep your secrets, and keep her safe. One day, she learned the truth of what she is, whether you tell her or not, and she will bring an end to what hasn't even begun. I spoke softly and glanced over to Emmeline, who sat on her mother's lap, clutching a small, dirty stuffed animal that I could tell had been well loved. The poor girl couldn't have been over 6 or 7 years old. Her life as a Fae had barely begun. She glanced up at me with glassy emerald eyes, and I gave her a kind smile. I watched the faint glimpse of a smile pass over her features before she looked back to her mother, who was telling her everything was going to be okay. I got to my feet and moved toward the living wall of all my plants. A conservatory of anything I might need for spells or for people in need of my healing abilities. I gathered all the ingredients I needed quickly, mashing them together until they were nothing but watery goo, before casting the spell of protection over the concoction I had made. Orion, Ivy, and Emmeline sat at my small table. Emmeline kept glancing to her father with worry-filled eyes. It's okay, he reassured his small family as I finished the last of my potion. Ready? I asked all 3 of them, and they looked up to me. Will it hurt her? Orion asked, gripping his daughter's small hand. No, not at all. She might feel a tingling sensation, but that's it, I assured, and he gave me a nod of his head before letting me continue. Can I have your hand? I asked Emmeline, and she hesitated, looking to both of her parents for the okay before finally reaching out her hand. I grabbed her wrist, facing her palm up and slowly pouring my mixture into it. She flinched from the sensation as it slowly seeped into her skin, into her bloodstream. I bent it through her carefully and could tell she felt it pass through her body. Are you okay, darling? Ivy whispered in her daughter's ear, and she just nodded her head as I finished pouring the last of it in her hand. Blood was mostly water, so it was easy to maneuver the potion through her veins. But I wanted to be sure. I grabbed her hand gently and let my power take over, my eyes so easily shifting to white, and I tried to see her future for myself. Nothing. Instead, I saw the fates of people close to her, as if I were looking through her eyes and seeing the futures of the next closest people. Her village, the sky elves, her best friend, her mate, but nothing regarding her. It had worked. No other soothsayer would be able to see her, no witch would be able to find her. I made sure of it by binding the spell to my life. It was the best I could do. My eyes shifted back to their normal brown, and the tension that had been in the room moments before faded. It worked. I can't see her fate anymore, I announced, and Orion let out a breath. It'll keep her safe for now, but not forever. I suggest keeping up with training and telling. No, I'm not telling her or anyone unless it comes out in some way. I will protect her with my life, and I will train her to be the best she can be. But my daughter will have normalcy. I'm not putting the weight of this world on her shoulders. Have it your way, child. But one day, she will learn the truth. It's a shame she will learn it from anyone other than those she's closest to. I went to walk away, but Orion grabbed one of my wrists. Swear it? Swear what? I asked, my brow pinched. Asterisk. Swear he won't tell her. My eyes volleyed between him and his daughter. A small smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. I swear it. But only because I know what she will truly become for this world in her own time, truly magnificent. She already is. Orion looked to his daughter with eyes so full of pride. Thank you for your help, he said with a nod of his head. Now, go, leave here, because come morning something ugly is coming, I ordered. And Orion gathered up his family and moved quickly out of the door, leaving me in empty silence. Asterisk when Marlena woke me. She was already wearing her dress and makeup for the coronation. She looked beautiful, but I couldn't focus on anything other than the dread coursing through my veins. I had to tell her what was going to happen today, but I knew it wouldn't change what awaited us. We wouldn't get away, and I didn't want to change fate. I just wanted to postpone it. Asterisk. Get up, we're going to be late. She huffed as she tugged the covers off me. I rolled out of bed and walked over to the bathing room so I could clean up, glancing up into the small, fractured mirror. I looked as terrible as I felt. Pushing the insecurity aside, I bent water from the stream that ran behind our small home through the window and into the tub so I could quickly wash up. After a cold bath that brought me back from the dead, I brushed out my long hair, braiding it effortlessly and leaving out a few pieces to frame my face. My sister was humming and making something in our small kitchen as I opened the closet and found the dress she had bought me hanging there. It was the same as Marlena's, except mine was blue rather than emerald, and both dresses were accented with gold. I threw it on quickly. I could feel Marlena's frustrations flowing from the other room. Not literally, maybe it was just a twin thing, but I knew it was only a short matter of time before she came in here to chew my head off for making us late to one of the biggest celebrations of the year. Little did she know we wouldn't make it there, but there was no sense in trying to argue with her. I'd let it play out just like I always did and act accordingly as we went. The dress was flowy and comfortable. I slipped a pair of comfortable shoes on. Nobody would be able to see the tattered things under the length of the dress. Not like it mattered. It wouldn't be long now. I took a deep breath and then another. I knew once I walked into the other room, I'd have to tell Marlena what was going to happen today. She'd see it written all over my face regardless. I swallowed down the lump forming in my throat and walked out into the living room, where I spotted her making us both something quick to eat. She had a smile on her face until she glanced up from the two bowls in her hands to look at me. Her facial features fell. The tension grew thick. Willow, what's wrong? She asked, and I nodded my head toward the chair, silently asking her to sit. I took the seat next to her. Valos is going to take the crown and ember for himself. What? Why? You saw this? She shook her head in disbelief as I told her about what I'd seen. The calm morning we were having quickly changed into an evacuation plan. Marlena made haste, tearing through the house, gathering all our necessities for a long trip. I didn't know where she thought we would go, but I let her lead, my vision guiding my next moves. I grabbed my bag, throwing it over my shoulders, and Marlena did the same. We were both still in our dresses with thin cloaks over us. Marlena said she didn't want us to draw attention to ourselves, and with today being the coronation, everyone would be dressed in their finest. She went on and on about how we could make it out of the Imperial District before the coronation began if we left now. We wouldn't, but I learned long ago that you don't mess with fate. I ushered Marlena out the door, and as we walked down the 3 front steps and off the porch, she turned back and admired our small house, the longest place we had ever called home. Tears lined her eyes, and I pulled her into me. Hey, we'll make it out of this. We'll find somewhere new, I assured her, even though I knew it was a lie. All she could muster was a nod as she tossed the hood of her cloak over her head, and I did the same. We walked through the backwoods along the small, well-used path. Overgrowth nipped at my ankles as I took the lead on our journey. If we continued at this pace, we'd be at the edge of the Imperial District within the hour. Marlena and I sat behind a fallen tree and peered over it at the row of ember soldiers barricading the border of the Imperial District in the distance. No one could leave. Valos had planned everything. It had been calculated. He wanted people to watch. He wanted his citizens to submit to his power. Maybe if we stick to the thicker woods, we can make it past them unnoticed, Marlena whispered. to me grabbing my wrist and tugging me along behind her, doing her best to keep quiet. Vines and tree limbs whipped at my ankles and face. My breathing grew heavier with anticipation and fear by the minute. We were almost there, just a little farther and we'd be free. But then I remembered feeling this hopefulness in my vision right before it had been plucked from me. Marlena's hand jerked out of mine so hard it sent me to my back. I glanced up, ignoring the pain throbbing through my head. An Ember soldier had Marlena wrapped in his arms, a dagger to her throat. Well, would you look at that? Where are you two off to on such a special day? He asked, not releasing her. Asterisk, we got lost in the woods on our way to the coronation. Of course, sir, I said, giving a slight smile. I don't like liars. He dug his knife a little deeper into Marlena's neck, causing a line of blood to dribble from the wound. And then the dreaded words left her mouth. Marlena would always be one to save her own ass. I'd hoped that was something I could change in her fate over the next few years. We're soothsayers. Marlena shouted, scared of losing her life. I internally cursed. Because I knew what the soon-to-be most powerful man in all of Ember would do with that bit of information, and I didn't like it. But I also didn't want to change it. I needed this to work. The soldier contemplated. I would say, I don't believe you, but why else would you flee? He asked more to himself than to us. He was eyeing both of us. Your rarities, and I'm sure Valos will appreciate your abilities. He shoved Marlena into my chest, and I wrapped my arms around her. More Firefly soldiers circled us. Are you all right? I whispered. Moving her hair to the side, I pulled water from the ground to heal her wound. My hand glowed a faint blue before dissipating to nothing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have told them, she murmured, stumbling over her words. She was shaking. From fear, adrenaline, or both, I couldn't be certain. It's all right. I wrapped my arms around her to comfort her. Take them to the coronation and don't let them out of your sight. When it's over, deliver them to Valos. The man who had captured Marlena commanded before he yanked Marlena from my arms and cuffed her in irons. She fell to the ground as he turned to walk away. I went to grab her, but one of the soldiers cuffed me too. Pain thrummed through me as my power drained away, leaving behind a hollow hole in my chest. The silence of the water that had called to me made me feel disconnected from my very soul. Asterisk. 4 soldiers ushered us back into the Imperial District on the main road. Marlena and I could easily take them out, even without our bending. I was sure of it, but we wanted to survive. We could take on a few soldiers, but we couldn't take on Valos and his army. And he had a massive one. Marlena and I walked side by side as the soldiers marched us back to the coronation. It had already started. The sight in front of me was from my vision. The crowd was a blur of creatures and faces. Devdim and Tygan stood there with bright smiles as the crown bearer walked out, preparing to hand over power. Valos stood a few feet away on the stage, smug victory already painted on his features. And then the iron arrow flew and hit its mark. Tygan gasped as he fell to his knees, his hands wrapped around the arrow that had penetrated his heart. He glanced over at his brother with hurt eyes before he collapsed. He was gone, the current. Empress Lena cried out at the loss of her youngest son as Devdin dropped to his knees, cradling his son in his lap as he wept. Cease follows. Devdin wielded the command with such heavy emotion he almost choked over his words. Soldiers rushed the stage. The crowd panicked and people began running, crying, screaming chaos. Valos didn't move. He kept the look of victory plastered on his features as one by one, every soldier that came for him hit the ground. Different soldiers emerged as if from thin air from the crowd, killing their fellow comrades. Valos had won. From the inside out, he had gained control slowly over the years. He had waited his whole life for this. From the moment he'd found Out his father was going to hand the crown to his younger brother rather than to him. Devton and his wife peered around, their eyes widening with shock and surprise, but it was too late. In the next moment, Valos walked up to them on their knees next to their fallen prince, ripped the arrow from his brother, and shoved it through his father's chest. Valos' mother screamed out in agony at the loss before. Valos yanked the arrow from his father's body at 5 speed and then speared his mother. He'd killed his whole family on display for power. As his mother fell, he turned toward the crowd. "I am your emperor now," he shouted over the screams of the crowd. Slowly, people went quiet to hear what he had to say. "I am the eldest son of Devton. This throne is rightfully mine. My father believed I wasn't fit to rule, that I wasn't good enough for him or his crown. But regardless of his decisions, I wedded and had children. I did all the things required to rule, and my father betrayed me by choosing my little brother. He tried to justify his actions, but in reality, the man was only hungry for authority sovereignty, which was why his father had refused to give him the crown, but he didn't view it that way. Now he would rule mercilessly, all to prove to himself and his dead father that he was capable, that he was powerful. Valos's eldest child, his daughter Vala, walked up onto the stage with a bow in hand. It had been her. She had killed her uncle for her father. I could see the tears growing in her eyes. She was just a girl who wanted to make her father proud, and Valos would corrupt her for it. I pitied her for what was going to happen to her. "This is the new royal family of Ember," he said as his wife and 2 younger boys walked onto the stage. The woman kept her head down, never looking up from her feet, keeping her boys tucked into her sides. She had decorative iron cuffs on her wrists that looked like bracelets. That poor woman had been arranged into a marriage with a monster all those years ago, forced to bear his children, to live a life of submission, caged by the irons on her wrists. She couldn't fight back even if she wanted to, not without her bending. She didn't stand a chance against Valos. I was disgusted. But I knew she would rise against him, and the image of seeing that in my vision made a small seed of pride fill my chest. Marlena gripped my hand, and we shared a look before Valos spoke again. "Meet your new princess. Vala Corvus, my namesake and firstborn." Vala smiled, fighting back tears while taking a small bow. "My sons, your princes, Cade and Everett Corvus." Their mother ushered them to take a few steps forward, as they were just kids, but Cade was the eldest of the 2. They both peered around, seeing their dead grandparents on the ground along with all the other dead soldiers in the crowd. Those poor children shouldn't be seeing that, but they didn't cry, didn't shed a single tear. They remained stoic and unafraid as they stood in front of the havoc their father had created. I couldn't imagine the things they'd seen in their short lives. As for my wife, your empress, who she is holds no importance, he said as he walked to her and gripped her chin before murmuring something in her ear. Afterwards, she knelt in front of him, bowing before him. "You all should learn a thing or 2 about loyalty to me from my wife. Anyone who disagrees is free to leave, but there will be certain—" "Oh, what's the word?" he teased. "Consequences for your betrayal." A moment passed, and a few small groups took the opportunity to run. Little did they know, they would meet death from the soldiers at the border. Finally, Valos nodded to the crown bearer, who was trembling in his boots, commanding him with a single look to come to him. The bearer stumbled over to Valos and bowed, holding the crown out for him to take. Valos snatched it with a smile before placing it upon his head. He dismissed his family, and they all left the stage before 2 soldiers dragged his dead parents and brother to the center. Valos's arms engulfed in flames, his eyes going dark. He looked like a living nightmare as he rained fire down upon their corpses, leaving nothing but ash behind. He made everyone watch as he destroyed the beloved royal family of before. That was only the beginning of the end. Chapter 1 in a struggle to orient myself. My chest tightened, a sharp pain flaring with each heartbeat as the realization hit me. I couldn't breathe. I was underwater, suffocating in its embrace. I fought against the panic, my mind racing as much as my heart. Desperately, I tried to bend the water around me, willing it to propel me toward the surface, toward air. But it was like moving through liquid stone dot just when I thought I might find the strength to break through the haze. Something slick brushed against my leg. Leathery scales sent a jolt of terror coursing through me. I twisted, trying to see through the murky depths. Then, movement swayed, and a creature of considerable size loomed before me. My thoughts spiraled. I was convinced this was how I would meet my end, not on a battlefield or by bending, but in the jaws of some sea beast. As it drew closer, the details of its form became clearer. It possessed feline-like features. The creature was easily the size of 3 large men. Jagged fins adorned its body, stretching from the crown of its head down to the very tip of its tail. The colors of the beast shifted before my eyes, transitioning from a deep blue to a vibrant warning red. It was a hue that screamed danger, one that nature often used to ward off those foolish enough to approach. My body screamed for air, and my mind cried out for mercy. But then, when it didn't do anything, there was a strange sense of recognition, an understanding that this creature wasn't a threat. It was a water lynx, and not just any lynx, I realized, but the one I had saved before. He circled me once before he disappeared into the depths below me and then shot back up between my legs. I clung to the creature's leathery hide as it twisted and turned beneath me, muscles coiling like serpents under its scales. Water rushed past us in torrents, a cacophony of bubbles and currents vying to pull me away into the void. My lungs screamed in silent agony. Just as darkness started to close in at the edges of my consciousness, I felt the lynx surge upward. A powerful thrust from its tail propelled us through the water, faster and faster until we burst through the surface. I gasped, the air sweet and stinging as it filled my starving lungs. My fingers unclenched from the beast's flanks, and I coughed violently, expelling water. I squinted, pushing my drenched hair back from my face to peer at my surroundings. The waters of Draenua stretched endlessly around us, but there, cutting a silhouette against the night, was Magni Island. The lynx moved with an elegance that belied its massive size, swiftly closing the distance between us and the shore. Cade. He had followed me to Magni, knowing I'd be safe here since it was protected, but couldn't fully breach the barrier. The shore approached, and I slipped from the lynx's back, my body collapsing onto the sand. Tremors racked me, every fiber of my being weak and spent from the fight for survival. I lay there, panting. And then the lynx was by my side, its presence a strange comfort. It nudged me gently with its head before using its webbed paw to roll me over. A rough, warm tongue swept across my cheek, an affectionate gesture that felt wholly out of place in this moment. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice hoarse as I reached out to touch the creature's whiskered face. "I guess we're even now." Hauling myself into a sitting position, I stared out at the calm waters. Cade had saved me, yes, but at what cost? Ace, my brother, had been left behind in whatever hell Cade had deemed necessary for me to escape, but not him. He should have saved him too. And if not, then he shouldn't have saved either of us. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if something happened to him all, because he'd been trying to save me. And all the while, the secret Cade had kept from me festered like a wound. He was my mate. The revelation tore at me, fury and sorrow waging war in my chest. All this time he'd known. I screamed, a raw reaction that carried my pain and rage across the waves. Now that I wasn't feeling both of our emotions, I had more clarity. Tears streamed down my face, my sobs the only sound until another joined them, the ancient rasp of a voice I knew all too well. The night seemed to hold its breath. Oh, Emmeline. He drawled out my name like he savored it. Each syllable rolled off his tongue with a weight that made my already heavy heart sink further into the pit of my stomach. I could hear the water dripping from his slick body to the sand. The kappa was behind me. I stiffened, my hands balling into fists in the damp sand. My throat felt tight, constricted, as if his words were tangible things wrapping around my neck. I wasn't scared, just angry. Kappa, I managed to say, my voice soft but steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Why have you come? The air grew colder, the presence of the ancient being more palpable. I refused to let him see how his proximity unnerved me, how my skin prickled. So I remained still, waiting. There was a pause, a stretching moment where the world seemed to wait with me for his response. Then the kappa settled, beside me with the ease of a creature both feared and revered. The lynx, still looming close, watched us with eyes that gleamed like moonlit pools. The lynx thinks highly of you. And it was a returned act of kindness, so here I am, he explained. His voice a raspy caress. He drew his abnormally long, lanky, slick legs to his chest, an oddly human gesture. With a long, taloned finger, he scratched beneath the lynx's scaly chin, and the beast responded with a sound that vibrated deep in its throat, one that, despite everything, coaxed a fleeting smile onto my lips after a moment bathed in the serenity of our strange companionship. The lynx circled us once, an elegant animal bidding its silent farewell. It then turned and padded back into the embrace of the waters. I would offer you another truth, but it looks like you found out all the most important ones, the kappa mused. Are you saying there is more I still don't know? I'm not sure I can handle much more, I admitted, struggling to maintain my composure. I assure you, you can. He crooned the words. Of course, I retorted with a half-hearted scoff. I've only just discovered my mate has been lying to me and is the enemy prince. And now I'm conversing with a kappa on a protected island. And my brother has been left with the enemies. My threshold for what I can handle seems to be expanding by the minute. He let out a sound that could have been a chuckle, a gurgling ripple. Was I joking around with the kappa? A beast that no one else had ever survived an encounter with? I had expected something worse to come of the sarcasm. Remember, truth is like the ocean, it ebbs and flows, but it never ceases to be. Very poetic, I said, arching an eyebrow. But if you're done dispensing cryptic wisdom, I'd appreciate a straightforward answer for once. Where would be the fun in that? He flashed a wide, sharp, toothy grin that had once been terrifying to me. But now it just seemed like a returned smile from a friend. Besides, I find flustering those I meet entertaining. It is the only fun I truly get to have being a know-it-all. Delighted to amuse you, I muttered, though the corner of my mouth betrayed me, curling up ever so slightly. Embrace the unknown, Emmeline. It's where the true adventure lies. He unfolded himself gracefully and stood to his full, impressive height, casting a long shadow over the sand. Easy for you to say, I shot back, pushing myself up despite the tremble in my limbs. You're all-knowing. You see what awaits you on your adventure. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms in an attempt to anchor myself to the present. I don't know where to go from here, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do. The kappa's eyes glinted with something I couldn't place. Pity? Well, we're on an island with dragons just over the way there, he said, nodding toward the dense foliage. I think you know exactly what to do. He began to make his way to the tree line, the leaves brushing against him as though parting for royalty. The rebellion is in the western mountain range in Woodhaven. If you leave soon, You could make it there in a day. His words felt like a lifeline thrown into the treacherous waters that had been my thoughts. Why did you give me that information? I asked, brows furrowing with suspicion. I didn't fill your cap. Nothing came free from the kappa, especially not information. A slow, unsettling smile crept across his face. Maybe the lynx and I have something in common, my jewel. He dragged out the last word, and it sent a shiver down my spine. The kappa's form, slick and glistening, turned from me and began to move toward the forest's edge. Farewell, Peacebringer, he called, asterisk. Wait, the word escaped my lips before I could tether it. My hand reached out toward him. I saw his back, broad and draped in a cloak of dampened shadows. As he was readying to leave the sandy shore, you never told me your real name. My voice was steadier than I felt. Daring to demand something so personal from a creature whose very existence was shrouded. He stilled, and for a moment, all that could be heard was the gentle lapping of water against the shore and my own uneven breaths. His head tilted slightly as he considered the request. Then slowly, he looked over his shoulder at me, a glimmer of something unfathomable flickering in his deep-set eyes. Names hold power, Emmeline, he finally started, especially for someone like me. My true name is Aotaro. You are the only living creature to know it from my tongue, so when you need it, use it responsibly. The silence hung heavily between us. I opened my mouth to speak, but before a sound could escape, he stepped forward. The ground where he'd stood rippled, turning into a dark puddle that seemed to reach up and claim him. In a blink, he slipped into the liquid shadow, disappearing without a trace, as if he had never been there at all. Then, to my left, branches cracked and foliage gave way. My heart lodged itself in my throat. For a heartbeat, I didn't recognize this giant creature coming toward me. But then the dragon's eyes met mine, and they were so yellow, they almost glowed, piercing the darkness and fixing upon me with an intensity that felt familiar. When he exhaled, a plume of smoky breath cascaded over me, sending ripples through my damp hair and enveloping me in his earthy scent. Gyros. I breathed. The dragon's recognition flashed within those bright orbs, and a low rumble vibrated from his throat, resonating through the clearing. Hello, Emmeline, he said. He was no longer the little dragon that had slept in my lap not long ago. He was double, if not triple the size of Emerus now. He lowered himself to the ground in front of me. I instinctively moved to his side and climbed up his massive frame. I would love to catch up, but unfortunately there is somewhere I need to be, I said. And he rose and extended his leathery wings. We can catch up later, he agreed, and then he roared. A bellow so loud I was sure he was telling everyone of his departure as we took off into the skies. Chapter 2.ace. The pain was a living thing, with teeth and claws that dug into the flesh of my broken wing, my back, my legs, skies above, everywhere at this point. Every movement sent a fresh wave of agony through me. My arms had been wrenched cruelly above my head, stretching the top muscles where my wings met skin. My left wing hung, broken from the cave, collapsing. The weight of it hanging there made me want to scream. It kept sending ripples of torment down my spine. Beneath me, my leg, distorted and gravely swollen, throbbed in time with the pounding of my heart. The bone, I was sure, was nothing but fragments floated within the bruised flesh. It was a useless limb now, another anchor chaining me to this hellish reality. Emmeline is safe. I consoled myself again, the mantra I kept repeating when the depths of despair threatened to overwhelm me. Her escape was my victory. The sacrifice of my freedom, my very life, was a price I would pay willingly. Ulana. The name cut through my fog of suffering like the last rays of sunshine before nightfall. I couldn't die. I had to keep my promise. I had vowed to return to her, but doubt crept in. Because how the fuck would I get out of this before Vala decided to end me? The enchantment in here had been designed to sap the strength of those within its grasp. My power was gone, leaving me hollow and defenseless without my bending. On top of being beaten and broken, I crack. The sound split the air. Then anguish cut off my thoughts. Vala stood behind me, wielding her whip with precision. She lashed out again, the leather biting into my already mangled back. My breath came in ragged gasps, the edges of my vision blurring, whether from the blood that trickled into my eyes or the swelling that was starting to seal them shut from her earlier torment. I could not tell. Asterisk I wanted to beg, but my vow and pride kept the plea locked tight behind clenched teeth. Instead, a guttural groan of pain escaped my lips. This dark chamber might end up being my grave. And yet, despite it all, the broken body, the drained power, the looming shadow of death, I clung to the threadbare hope that my suffering was not in vain, that Emmeline's freedom would lead us all toward winning this war. Even if I might not be around to see it, she could do this, would do this. She would win. I believed in her more than anything else. My Laokai. Even the voice in my head was mumbling and weak. That's enough for now. I'll let you heal, but don't think I'm done with you yet. Vala's voice slithered through the air. Her footsteps receded. The door closed with a clank, sealing me inside this tomb of a room. How long had it been? Moments? Hours? Days? I wouldn't know. Time had lost all meaning in this abyss, each second indistinguishable from the last, stretching into an eternity of pain and darkness. Vala was a mastermind at torture, I'd give her that. The shadows crept closer, and I knew I wouldn't be awake much longer. So I let the dark claim me, whispering promises of my oblivion. Asterisk my vision swam as consciousness returned, a dull throb in my skull keeping time with the pulsing agony of my shattered limbs. As clarity came through the haze of pain, I saw him, Cade, the Prince of Ember looming over me. I tried to pull back, but all I did was hurt myself. I hissed in pain. What the fuck do you want? I signed roughly, blood staining the air with each jerky movement of my bound wrists. I spat blood on his boots. I could feel the weight of his gaze, assessing, calculating. What game was he playing now? But instead of the expected cruelty, with a clink of metal, my wrists were suddenly free, and I was a broken heap of feathers and flesh. Cade reached out and grabbed me, his hands surprisingly gentle as he eased my body to the floor with care that seemed at odds with everything I knew of him, skies above. What the hell is this good guy, bad guy bullshit? Is this what you did to Emmeline all this time? The signs came rapidly, fueled by a blend of confusion and rage. Pain flared through my limbs as I struggled to focus on Cade, the prince who was now crouching before me. His brow was furrowed, and the look of urgency in his eyes seemed to be searching mine for some kind of understanding. I wouldn't let that happen to Emmeline. Ace, I need you to listen to me very carefully because I do not have a lot of time. It's me. I'm Crow. His voice was barely above a whisper. I narrowed my gaze, disbelief clouding my thoughts. You're lying, I signed. A moment passed. It was silent save for the ragged breaths escaping my lips, and then a thought struck me. How could anyone know about Crow? Especially the prince. He was a wraith, a shadow slipping through the cracks, unseen and unheard, as far as I knew from what everyone at the rebellion had said. As I lay there, I grappled with the implications of his claim. A traitor to his crown? My mind spun, trying to align this revelation with the world I thought I knew. He sat on his haunches next to me, letting all the gears in my mind work through what he had told me. Pain seared through my back like embers igniting dry leaves. I could feel the jagged ends of bone grinding against one another with every little movement. Every fucking breath. Give me more of a reason to believe you. Hollow, or tell me something only Crow would know. Anything, I signed, and then his body slowly slipped into shadows. Wispy tendrils flowed off him, and then Crow was crouching before me. If you need more of a reason, I also hollowed you into the lake on our way to the rebellion, jackass. Skies above. He was fucking Crow. Now listen to me. While Emmeline was here, she was under my care. Unfortunately for you, you were captured by Vala and are not under my protection like she was. But I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. And what? You expect me to trust you? After this, I signed, my movements sluggish as I looked over myself and then back to him. Yes, because I'm the only one that can get you out of here. Cade continued, if you would like to leave right now, all you have to do is say the word, and I will hollow us both back to the rebellion. But know that if I do that, they are going to know someone from the inside was responsible for your escape. My father would have good reason to think it was one of his children, and we could lose all of the progress we have made, but I would do it for Emily and for you. I know how much you mean to each other. But Ace, know that my father is planning something for the Peacebringer that I feel we are close to uncovering. I just need some more time. I don't know what it is, but while Emmeline was here, someone controlled her mind for only a moment, but it was long enough for her to lose control. She wasn't herself. If you are willing to stay here just a little while longer, I might be able to figure out what it was, Cade explained, every word desperate and pleading. Why do you care so much for us? You have only known Emmeline for mere months, because Emmeline is my mate and I have known about her since before the war started. The conviction in his eyes was bright even in the darkness. I had been keeping Ember off of her trail from the moment I found out she was mine. My mind raced, piecing together everything. The way Crow had been attached to Emmeline at the rebellion, the way Cade had maneuvered to let Emmeline escape on his ship, the maps marked with our locations. He hadn't been seeking to capture us. He had been watching over us. Random absences at the rebellion took on new meaning. He wasn't just one of us, but also one of them, a double agent within his own empire. I've been on both sides of this war for a long time, Ace. Cade's voice broke. I'm just as ready for it to be over as you are. I just need to figure out what control my father had over Emmeline. Voices echoed on the other side of the door. Fuck, we were out of time. If I stayed, if I endured, perhaps it would be the turning point we needed. I didn't want Valos to have the upper hand over Emmeline ever again. I could do this just a little while longer. Fine, I signed. For Emmeline, for Luana, for the chance to end this war. I'll endure anything. Thank you. Cade exhaled. The sound almost too quiet. I still don't trust you. Cade acted swiftly, doing his best not to hurt me anymore as he shackled me again. But I couldn't hold back the growl as the cold metal bit into my flesh and pain flared through my back. I don't need your trust. I'll gain that later. Right now, I need you to live. I'll be back. I promise, was all I heard as Crow. Cade disappeared into the darkness of his hollow. I closed my eyes, and in my sleepy haze, I remembered his hands tending to my wounds and feeding me some type of broth. Chapter 3, Emmeline, *, the western peaks of Woodhaven appeared below. Bedos's wings cut through the warm air with powerful rhythmic beats as we soared closer to the mountain range. My heart thudded in my chest from anticipation. I scanned the rugged landscape below, searching for any sign of life. Then, a faint trail curled into the sky. Smoke from a fire. I nudged Bedos gently, and he understood, descending toward the ground dot as we closed in on the source. My eyes found the irregular patterns of tents and the haphazard placement of barricades. This was it, the rebellion camp, nestled in an almost invisible valley between the mountains. I felt the words the moment we hit them. Steady, Betos, I whispered, bracing myself against the feel of them. His shadow swept over the camp like an ominous cloud. The moment Bedos's talons grazed the earth, chaos erupted. Figures emerged from the tents like disturbed ants, weapons drawn, their faces etched with panic. "It's Emmeline," I called out. Recognition dawned on the weathered faces of the rebels as they lowered their weapons. Murmurs of disbelief rising among them doubt the peacebringer has returned. With the tension dissipating, I swung my leg over Bedos's scaled flank and leaped down onto the trampled grass of the encampment. My boots sank slightly into the dirt, still damp from an earlier rain, the scent of petrichor mingling with the smoky tendrils escaping the nearby fire pits. No sooner had my feet found purchase than a flurry of movement caught my eye. Shay, her face showing nothing but relief and despair as she moved for me. I braced myself just in time for the impact of her tackle. "Emmeline," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion as we held each other close. The swell of her belly pressed against me, a poignant reminder of the life she carried of hope. I was determined to make this world a better place, if only for the sake of that babe. "Fuck, I'm so glad you're alive." "Me too," I said, and she let out a noise that sounded like a sigh and a chuckle. Stepping back from Shay's hold, I managed to smile. A figure broke free from the rest, striding toward us with purpose that commanded attention. Atreya, her dark armor reflecting the dying day, scanned for the cause of this sudden intrusion. The lines in her face softened and relief shined in her eyes. I had returned to them, to the heart of the rebellion, and in that moment, it almost felt like coming home. But someone was missing. "Where is Ace?" I asked, and no words were needed. The truth was laid bare in the sorrowful tilt of her brow. He was left behind, wasn't he? My question was a formality, a futile attempt to reject what I already knew. Cold dread settled over me. Where the fuck is Crow? I didn't use his real name. I didn't even know which name was his real one. Had he lied about that too? Did Atreya know of his dual allegiances? The web of secrets just kept getting bigger. Atreya's silence was another answer of its own, but whether it stemmed from ignorance or discretion, I couldn't tell. Then, as if conjured by my very fucking thoughts, the air seemed to thicken, shadows clung to the trees, and Crow stepped into the clearing from his hollow. "You're dismissed," Atreya commanded, sweeping her gaze over the gathering of warriors and creatures alike. They hesitated for a heartbeat before they scattered back to their posts. Soon, the camp was bustling again with the low murmur of orders and the clanking of weaponry. I didn't wait for a second longer. I rushed Crow. His shadowy figure stood still. Even his tendrils of shade didn't dare move. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. His body jerked to the side, but he didn't fight back. "Where is Ace?" My hands were fists at my sides, my heart hammering against my chest like a caged beast desperate to be released. Crow's expression faltered, the lines of his face tightening as if bracing against the storm he knew was coming. "Emmeline," Crow started in a whisper. "Tell me," I pleaded, my voice cracking. The strength I'd mustered on the ride over here, the resolve I clung to, it all threatened to crumble at the mere thought of Ace. Of where he was, of what was happening to him. He was captured by Vala during the battle. But he's alive, I swear it. I'll keep him safe. He was alive, but for how long? My thoughts raced. Images of Ace in chains, suffering at the hands of Vala flashed before me. Each one like a corkscrew twisting deeper and deeper into my soul. Betos shifted uneasily behind us, his large wings rustling, sensing my distress. I drew a shaky breath, trying to ground myself. It wasn't working. Cade's shadows tried to steady me, but I grabbed the front of his tunic to hold myself, upright before the fabric bunched under my fists as I started to beat against his chest. I hadn't even realized I'd moved into his embrace. My vision blurred, a cascade of tears distorting my sight. "Bring him back. Bring him back now," I cried, Cade's grip was gentle as he studied my thrashing arms. Grabbing my wrists, he halted the battering I was doing against his chest. His hands moved to cradle my face, tilting it upward, so I had no choice but to meet his gaze. "Emmeline," he repeated. "You know, I can't do that, not yet." Asterisk, his thumbs caressed the wet trails on my cheeks, and for a fleeting moment, the warmth of his touch calmed me. He leaned in, placing his forehead against mine. I wanted to back away, to be angry at him, but I was rooted by his touch. "Winzoara." Ace agreed to stay, just for a little while longer, until we can figure out what Valus's plans are. His breath fanned over my face, mingling with my own. "I promise you I will keep him alive," he murmured. So close now, but I could feel the vibration of his voice against my skin. "Please, I just need a little more time. I promise I'll bring him back." His arms enveloped me then, and my knees buckled, my resistance crumbling. I cried into the coarse fabric of his tunic. I should blast him off a mountain, but I also wanted him to hold me. I didn't want Ace to stay there. I wanted him now. But he had agreed to stay. What the fuck could I do? The images of what Vala might do haunted me. Her cruelty knew no bounds. She would push him to the edge of life and death for her twisted pleasure. Or worse, deem him expendable. Valos didn't need him. They wanted me. My heart ached at the thought. At the possibility of losing Ace, I couldn't bear it. "I will do everything in my power, Emmeline. You have my word." "I will keep him alive," Crow reassured me over and over again. "Now please, Winzoara, eat something and get some rest. I need to meet with Atreya. I will find you soon." Reluctantly, I nodded, knowing that in this war-torn world, we each had roles to play. Crow gently unwound his arms from around me, and I felt the cold return, a stark reminder of the void Ace's absence had left behind. I watched Crow turn and stride toward Atreya's war tent dot with a muted sniffle. I rubbed at the wet streaks on my cheeks as I watched Crow's retreating back. Chapter 4, Cade *. It took every fiber of my being to let her go so I could talk to Atreya. After we spoke, she advised me that I should get back quickly and not linger. And I did, simply for the fact that if I had gone back to Emmeline, I wouldn't have left her. I hollowed through the shadows, the darkness clinging to me like a second skin. As I walked through them, they shed away from my princely mask. I was within the cold walls of the palace. It was late, the moon hanging heavy in the sky, casting slivers of light through the narrow windows of the dungeon. The stench of blood and despair hit me first as I approached. The cell where Vala kept Ace, the sight that greeted me when I opened the door was vile. Enough to churn my stomach. Ace hung limply from his chains, his body painted with fresh wounds and dried crimson. Fuck. The wounds I had tended before I'd left wept across his torso. My gaze fell to one of his mangled wings, sprawled uselessly on the damp floor, feathers matted with blood. Another clear break made in that one. "Damn you, Vala," I muttered under my breath. I had to focus on saving what was left of him and keeping him alive going forward until I found the answers I needed. I hated what he would have to endure for this, but what other choices did we have? If I got him out of here, I wouldn't be coming back. He was unconscious, a small mercy given his condition. I knew time was of the essence. I didn't know when Vala would be back. He needed aid and fast. I hollowed through the shadows once more, slipping into the kitchens where the air was heavy, with the scent of roasted meats and simmering stews from the day's meals. My presence went unnoticed as I let my shadows scan the area, ensuring not a single soul was there to witness me. Satisfied, I moved, snatching up a jug of water and some bread and meat, then vanishing back into the darkness. I hollowed to my room. A first aid kit had been added in the cabinet since Emmeline's stay here. I retrieved it from the washroom and plunged back into the shadows. Back in the dungeon, I set everything down with meticulous care, taking a moment to steel myself. Then I unshackled Ace's wrists. His body sagged with the release, a pained groan escaping him as I eased him onto the floor. His instincts kicked in, and he lashed out weakly, expecting Vala to be back. Hey, Ace, it's me. I whispered close to his ear. Recognition flickered in his eyes, confusion, and then a sense of relief. With ragged breaths, he stilled, his fight melting away. Cade, he signed as he exhaled a breath. Rest now, I urged gently, my fingers already moving to tend to his wounds. As I worked, the image of Emmeline's heartbreak sliced through me again, her anguish driving my every action. This was for her, for us, for the shattered pieces of our bond that I would mend or die trying. But also, I wanted to mend the relationship I had with Ace. I'd felt the love Emmeline had for her brother, and I wanted to share that level of closeness, that camaraderie with him. He deserved that. I stayed vigilant, my ears straining against the silence, ensuring Vala wasn't coming back. My shadows curled around me like protective tendrils as I tended to Ace. My hands worked methodically, dabbing at the wounds, the stench of blood, herbs, and antiseptic mingling in the damp air. He watched me through half-lidded eyes, pain etched in every line of his battered face. She said she wouldn't be back for a few days to let me heal. Ace's hands trembled, his lips splitting when he unexpectedly chuckled. The chuckle died in his throat as I fixed him with a stare, the shadows around us pulsing with my unvoiced anger and concern. My fingers paused, hovering above the mangled mess of his wing. What about that is funny to you? I pressed, voice low, a hint of desperation lacing my words. Had he gone mad? I had seen madness take many forms, twisting minds until reality became an unrecognizable blur. For a moment, I feared that Ace's mind had fractured under the weight of his pain and Vala's torture. Ace's eyes, clouded with pain, met mine, and there it was, a flicker of lucidity that hadn't been entirely snuffed out. I didn't think you would come back, he signed, regardless of how you may feel about me. I will always come back for you. Flattered, Ace signed with a bloody grin. I hope that one day you see me as more than just the villain, I said, breaking the silence that hung between us. Ace's jaw tightened, but he did not turn away. The silence stretched out like a chasm that threatened to swallow any semblance of common ground we might have found in another life. Gingerly, I dipped the cloth back into the jar of salve, the thick mixture clinging to the fibers as I drew it out. The room was quiet, save for the occasional drip of water echoing from some distant corner of the dungeon. My hands were steady as I focused on the task at hand. Each application of the balm felt like a silent apology for wounds I had not inflicted but felt responsible for. Nonetheless, your empire is responsible for the near extinction of my people, the death of my homeland, the lives of my and Emmeline's loving parents. Ace's words were like blade to my heart. At least you still have your father, your people. So I think I'll pass. I paused mid-motion, the cloth hovering above his marred skin. It was true. My lineage was one of conquerors and tyrants. And though I sought to be different, to break the cycle of oppression that my father had woven into our world, the shadow of his deeds loomed over everything I did. One day, I hoped I would be seeing my own skin rather than his. My father is a monster, I confessed on a whisper, a truth I had long since come to terms with, and I'll have to live with his actions for the rest of my life. I resumed my work, spreading the salve over another patch of busted skin, trying to push aside the guilt that gnawed at my insides. I've lived every day knowing that he is my blood and wondering if I carry that same evil within me. I glanced up at Ace, seeking some semblance of understanding in his eyes. Your family's death is but another drop in the ocean of grief I'm forced to carry, Ace. My hand stilled again. And I know nothing they say will ever make the pain you feel go away. But I truly am sorry. Asterisk, I waited, watching Ace for any sign of softening, any indication that my words had reached him in some way. But there was only the flicker of torchlight playing across the hard set of his jaw and the faint scent of healing herbs rising between us. I turned back to my work, pressing a cloth soaked with cool water against Ace's lacerated skin before applying more of the healing salve. Just know, I finally broke the quiet, my voice low. Everything I do, everything I've done since finding out about Emmeline, I've done it all to keep her safe. I paused for a moment, and I'll always do what needs to be done to keep her safe and you because of her. It took him a moment, but Ace eventually responded. At least that's one thing we can agree on. His hands moved, carrying a note of camaraderie. A faint smile of understanding graced his lips, as if the acknowledgement of our shared goal had chipped away at the wall he had put up. In that fleeting moment, something shifted, the slightest bit of tension eased between us. We were two men marred by legacies we'd never asked for, our lives intertwined by fate and the fierce will to protect Emmeline. Chapter 5, Cade, asterisk, flashback. Asterisk, the heavy doors ground open and my father's firm hand guided me into the vastness of his throne room. The weight of expectancy hung in the air like fog, pressing against my small shoulders, making me feel as though I needed to stand straighter. Come, Cade. My father's voice resonated through the chamber, pulling me forward as my eyes danced over the fires that lined the walls. Marlena and Mulot, the soothsayers, sat on the opposite side of the throne room from us. Their gazes found mine across the room. A chill curled around my spine, but I squared my jaw and approached, mirroring the bravery I had seen in my mother countless times when she was scared of my father. We settled before them. I had sat in the balconies countless times for the readings the soothsayers did for my father, but I had never been the one sitting in front of them. Welcome, young prince. It appears your fate has been chosen for you, Marlena said as her eyes clouded over, turning a milky white, the color of winter skies, despite the familiarity of Marlena's craft. Something felt different this time, maybe because the reading was mine. Then my heart quickened. I was worried she would see my secret, that I could wield shadows. Suddenly, I felt queasy at the thought of Marlena revealing to my father that I did. Mother had told me all my life to keep that power to myself, keep it hidden because it would one day keep me and my brother safe. And so far, I had done well at keeping it under wraps. All I could do was hope that she wouldn't see it. You are the master of all the elements, she said. I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. What? It couldn't be. I couldn't be. He is the peace bringer, and with him the end shall come, she finished, her voice dropping to a hushed, foreboding tone. Willow didn't look very intrigued about what was happening right now. Did she think something different? I would have to talk with her soon. She always healed my mother after my father got too rough. And what did Marlena mean by the end? The end to what? My mind raced with the implications of her words, the weight of them settling on my chest. Asterisk, Marlena's trance-like state waned, her eyes clearing to their natural color. I frowned, my role as the eldest son and heir to Ember already carrying expectations I could barely fathom. I was only a boy. I didn't know how to save the world. But as my father clasped a hand on my shoulder and smiled down at me, I had a feeling he didn't want me to save anything because my father only knew how to break things. Darkness clung to my rooms, the only light a faint glow from the embers in the hearth. When the grip of my father's hand on my shoulder woke me, his fingers dug into my flesh, rousing me. Wah! My voice was thick with sleep. Get up, he commanded, and I shoved the covers aside. Father? I blinked rapidly, trying to chase away the remnants of the dream that clouded my vision. What are you doing? His silhouette loomed over me. He'd always been a figure of authority, his stature demanding obedience without question, but this early intrusion was unusual, even for him. He'd never been interested in me or Rhett until I'd had the meeting with the soothsayer yesterday. Ever since then, he had been around me constantly. Now was all he offered by way of explanation. His voice a low growl that left no space for arguing. I obeyed. Okay, I murmured, pulling on the tunic he had thrown at me, its fabric rough against my skin. I hurriedly dressed. Your training is not a matter to be questioned, Cade, he finally said. Training for what? I asked as I trudged behind him as we left my room. I shuffled through the dim corridors of the palace, my feet dragging against the floor. My father's towering figure walked beside me. I had a bad feeling, and I'd learned, even at the young age of 9, that my bad feelings when it came to my father were always right. Your mastery of fire is beyond your years, he began, his voice echoing off the halls as everyone else was still asleep. But we must wake up the rest of your abilities sooner rather than later. Father, I don't understand. You took the crown and you have Ember. What is the rush? I murmured. I kept my eyes fixed on the floor, avoiding the intensity that I knew burned in his. We reached the end of the hallway, stepping out into the open courtyard, where the sky was just beginning to hint at dawn's approach. Cade, he said sharply, turning to face me. Your role as the Peacebringer is crucial. Do not underestimate the importance of your presence by my side. Once your powers have awoken, we will not only have Ember, we will take the world. I nodded slowly, a response of obedience rather than agreement. There was no use arguing. My father's plans were immovable once he had his mind fixed on something. We will be unstoppable, he declared. His words slithered through me. Even at my young age, I didn't want any part in this. I'd seen the things my father had done to my mother over the years, and then what he'd done to our family, my grandfather, grandmother, my uncle. He'd taken Ember for himself mere months ago by killing them. What more could he possibly gain by taking the rest of the world too? Asterisk, father, to what end? I dared to ask, my voice steady despite the growing knot of apprehension in my chest. Power is everything, Cade, and who better to share it with than my son? He forced a smile, but I knew it was a lie. My father shared nothing. I would be his weapon and nothing more. I nodded again, and then his arms lit with flames and he attacked me. My training had begun, and I wasn't sure I'd survive it. Asterisk 8 years later, I felt the heat before I saw the flame. A rush of blistering air slicing across my cheekbone as I jerked my head to the side. I tasted blood, but at least it meant I was still awake. My knees buckled as I crashed against the stones. I pressed my palms to the floor, desperately trying to find the will to shove myself up. This was for her. To keep her safe, I reminded myself of my purpose every time. I felt my resolve weakening. My father watched from the far end of the practice ring. Arms folded over his chest with a look of disappointment painted over his features. I hated the way his shadow cut across the torches. If I was being honest with myself, I hated everything about this man. Smoke curled from his fingertips as his arms loosened at his sides. Get up, again. I stood. My calves screamed, muscles twitching, but I didn't hesitate. I'd endure. I gathered the last scraps of breath left in my lungs, counted to 3, and raised my fists, my flames lighting across my knuckles. He advanced. Step, pause, step, every movement deliberate. He preferred precision, knuckles into collarbone, heel into ribcage, palms splayed against the side of my skull to rattle the vision from my eyes. He circled, predatory. I tried to follow with my own feet, but exhaustion tangled them, pathetic. His eyes were the only warm thing about him, the only thing I shared with him. The rest of him had been carved from something colder than hate. You were supposed to be the chosen one. Instead, I get a boy who can't even block his father's punch. He fainted, and I caught the blur of movement too late. His fist connected with my sternum. Fire exploded inside my chest. I staggered back, winded, clutching my breastbone. I heard the words before I saw the next attack. Years, Cade, and you haven't shown a single sign of being more than ordinary. Maybe I've been too easy on you? He spat the words like they were poison. He lifted his hand, and the room filled with light. For one breathless second, a sun burned in his palm. It grew wild and red, folding in on itself with a deep, hungry whine. The torches dimmed by comparison. Sweat ran down my spine. My shirt was already soaked through, clinging to my blistered skin. He hurled the orb, and there was no dodging it. I screamed as the reek of burnt hair and flesh rose in oily waves around my face. Biting down on my tongue, I fought through the pain. I braced for the next attack, but the sound that split the quiet wasn't what I was expecting. It was my mother's voice, shrill and shaking with something past rage. Valos, enough. She swept into the room, shoved past my father. No one shoved past my father, especially not my mother, but she did. She came straight to me. He glared at her, eyes sparking, but she didn't flinch. Her hands were already on my cheeks, forcing my head up, scanning the damage on my chest and down my arm. Her fingers trembled, but the pain was too much. I wanted to tell her I would be okay, that everything was hurting so badly. I fell to the ground, unable to hold my weight any longer. You're going to kill him. She shouted. If he's the Peacebringer, a little fire won't kill him. Hopefully, it'll wake up whatever power is sleeping in him, Father growled. He flexed his hands, still smoldering, knuckles blackened with soot. Snarling, he paced away in anger. I lay there, chest heaving, fighting not to sob. Every inch of my body throbbed. I felt the blood and sweat pooling under my head, sticky and warm, and stared up at the gold swirls of the ceiling. This room had always been the worst prison. No bars, just tradition and expectation. Walls lined with the ghosts of ancestors glaring down from portraits. My mother managed to help me sit up, doing her best to ensure her iron cuffs didn't brush against my skin. I slumped forward, pressing my forehead to the floor. The heat had baked the tiles. They scorched the skin where my sweat made contact. I waited for the pain to recede, for the trembling to stop. It didn't. I knew it wouldn't. This was the worst damage she'd ever inflicted. My mother dragged me upright. And we stood there a moment so I could catch my breath. We need to get you to Willow, she said as we made our way to Willow's quarters one step at a time. By the time we made it there, my eyes were starting to close of their own accord. The adrenaline was wearing off, and I wasn't sure how much longer I'd be awake. My mother half carried, half dragged me into Willow's room, every step sending aftershocks of pain through my ruined body. Willow's door was already open, as if she had been waiting for us. Honestly, she probably had been. She rose from her chair with the effortless grace of the water-fae and moved to us urgently, pale blue royal robes dragging behind her. Valos went too far this time. We need your help, my mother implored her. Of course, she said, taking my weight from my mother's arms and guiding me to the cot. Breathe, Cade, Willow instructed, her voice steady and low. I tried. My throat convulsed, but the scream died away, replaced by an animalistic, broken gasp. Water pooled along the burns, trickling into cracks, coaxing the pain from bone and sinew. My vision tunneled, but I fought to keep my eyes open. To focus on Willow's face, the water kept coming, flooding over me in rippling waves. My skin began to numb, the burning ebbing to a dull throb. The wounds closed, not perfectly, but enough to stop the bleeding, leaving behind marred pink skin. I started breathing easier. I understand why you told me about her now, I murmured, and she looked at me confused. My maid. Thinking of her is what keeps me going during the bad days. I think you knew that I needed something to hold on to since it's only gotten worse over the years. Understanding washed over Willow's features. Her hands froze above my chest. The beads of water hung suspended in the air, glowing faintly. I'm sorry you've had to endure so much torment so young. But I think it's coming to an end. Valis's ambitions grow every day. You know this. But something changed this morning. My sister saw the sky elves in our session with him. And the ruin to come. She looked at me then. We do not have months or years. We have days. Maybe less before she tells him what she saw. I've done all I can to try and save my sister from her fate, but now it is time to let her go. We need to move forward with our plans of escape. She looked to my mother then. Willow had told us what she had seen, what would happen, and we had made plans over the years, but it had been a waiting game this entire time until now. So what next? I rasped, sitting up through the haze of lingering pain. Willow set a hand over mine. We run. I will escape with your mother tomorrow night. You need to write a letter letting your father know you will be leaving to further your training with the Western Wyverns by morning because you feel he has taught you all he can. He will know in a few days' time that your mother and I are gone, and then we will have a couple of years if we're lucky while he builds up his armies and initiates the war on Heaven's Reach. Asterisk.